Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Toronto Mississauga's webinar on work-life balance. My name is Dimitra Dimakopoulos, and as a UTM alumna, I am so pleased to welcome you today and look forward to what is sure to be an enlightening presentation. Today we have alumni and friends from all over the world watching this event, from Germany, Hong Kong, Japan, France, Guyana, Dakar, Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, Spain, Sweden, Serbia, England, Switzerland, Norway, and all across Canada and the United States. Welcome, everyone. Following this presentation, there will be a moderated question and answer period, and we encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. However, please hold off on submitting your questions until after the initial presentation is finished, as your question may be addressed during that time. If you're having technical difficulties, please use the Q&A button and one of our staff will be there to assist you. As I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Dimitra Dimakopoulos. I am a fitness trainer and health coach and the founder and CEO of the Knockout Room, an online health platform and supportive community that gives mothers and daughters a common ground around food, exercise, body image, and self-esteem. I've been a volunteer at the University of Toronto for the last 20 years, and am currently a board director for U of T Mississauga Alumni Association, an executive member of U of T's College of Electors, and a mentor in UTM's mentorship program. Today, I am delighted to introduce our presenter, Michelle Johnston. Michelle is a holistic nutritionist and workplace wellness specialist. Since 2004, she's been transforming the employee experience by designing and delivering inspiring workplace wellness programs through her company, Working Well. Michelle graduated from UTM in 2004 with a bachelor's degree in anthropology and uses the foundation of what she learned at U of T in many aspects of the work she does today. Michelle is a knowledgeable facilitator in the areas of stress management, mindfulness, mindset, and healthy living. In her spare time, you'll find her at her cottage in Aurelia with her husband, Ken, and their Golden Doodle whiskey. Thank you so much for being with us today, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Dimitra. Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is my pleasure to be here with you today. And there we go. Perfect. So yeah, let's jump right into our topic today, which is workplace wellness. I'm just going to give myself a moment to share my slide deck with you. And here we go. Perfect. In fact, I'm just going to notice it adjusted itself. So let's just put it back through. Okay, great. So work-life balance. I just wanted to say what I thought it would be really funny to show you guys. When I went to UTM, this is what the North Building looked like. It's very different now. I understand it's very, it's been completely renovated and changed. So this is where I spent most of my time in anthropology. And at the time, the campus was referred to as Arundel. I took a bit of a break while I was doing my degree. When I came back, one of my professors showed, it was I'm getting tongue-tied. It was an architecture course in the geography department, and Professor Gadd put up a picture of the campus and said, "And what location is this?" And I put my hand up and I said, "Oh, it's Arundel." And he said, "Well, we refer to it as UTM now, Michelle." So it's really my pleasure to be back and speaking with you today. It's always been a place, UTM's always been a place that's been very special to me, and I love higher education and learning. So today it's my pleasure to take us through this process of figuring out how we can create more work-life balance for ourselves. Just a little bit about me before we get started. So I have a workplace wellness company called Working Well, as Dimitra had mentioned. And it was really at UTM where the pieces started to fall together. People will often say back in those days, "Oh, what are you going to do with your anthropology degree? You know, you're going to be on archaeological digs all of the time." And I've always been really interested in human culture, human dynamics. And the moment I left UTM in 2004, I knew I was going to start a workplace wellness business, just trying to inspire people to have a better time at work. I noticed that it's a big source of stress for a lot of folks, which is why many of us are here today to talk about what we can do. So what I do is I offer lunch and learns and webinars, quite similar to this one, wellness classes, mindfulness, boot camp, yoga, Pilates. I have people who teach those for me. And I put together wellness fairs. So that's just a little bit about the foundation of work that I'm coming from. So I wanted to ask everybody a question, and we're going to launch a survey question. And I want you to think about, and this is all anonymous, we don't know who's answering the questions, but on a scale of 1 to 10, just take a moment right now, and I'd like you to think about where you rate in terms of how balanced you feel. So 1 is way out of balance, need lots of help. 10 is I'm feeling great, there's no room for improvement. So if you can just go ahead and share with us where you think you are today, that would be great. And in a moment, once the poll closes, we'll be able to share those results with everybody. And I want you to think about this number. I want you to think about it and hold it with you as we go through the process today. Because we're going to come back to it, and we're going to take a look at, okay, great. Take a look at where we're at. So the results are in, nobody's a 10. The majority of people, okay, so 7, 8. Some folks are a little bit lower. People can't hear me. Okay, can you hear me now? I'm just going to close the poll.
We can hear you, Michelle.
Oh, okay.
I'll deal with
Okay,
that
perfect.
issue.
I didn't know if the poll had something to do with it. Great. So I just want you to hold on to that number, and as we go through, we'll come back to it. Okay. So here's my promise to you with our time together today. I want you to think about how you can enjoy more balance without adding another strenuous thing on your to-do list. Oftentimes we get overwhelmed by thinking, we have to stop and then figure things out. And the time that it's going to take us to stop and reorient adds more pressure. I want you to figure out how you can find more peace in your life by using a tool that's been my favorite tool. I use it in so many of my workshops, and I'm going to give that to you at the end of the session today. It's going to be yours. I love giving people things, so it's going to be yours to take with you. A simple way to reclaim more hours in your week by being more mindful, so that you can regain control without wasting too much more of your time. Because we do a lot of time wasting in our modern society. And then the 3, I'm going to share with you the 3 biggest mistakes that led me to discovering a path to feeling more balanced, because this is something that I have struggled with for a long time, historically in my life. So we're going to look at how you can really have it all, feel better without having to make sacrifices or having to just overhaul your entire life. And to me, that's really exciting. So here's what we're going to learn today. I'm going to teach you my 3 secrets to having more balance in your life. There are so many things that we can do to help ourselves, but I wanted to pare it down and make it really simple. So number 1, we're going to look at how to identify where you're out of balance without thinking your entire life is a mess, so that you can actually create a plan of action, a plan forward that's customized to you, that you get to plan, chart out, and that one that you feel really good about. Secret number 2 that's helped me, I'm going to reveal to you how we can stop wasting more time without giving up the things that we really love. Because sometimes we know we might be wasting time on something that's not fruitful, but we don't quite want to give it up. Just like junk food. When we go on a diet, we don't want to never have cake or pizza again. We want to find out how to do things in moderation, so that you can have, in this context, more control over your schedule. And then number 3, we're going to look at how, this one's specific to the home, okay? How you can enlist your family members without the screaming matches and without just the additional stress that parents go through when trying to get all family members on board. So there's usually a big imbalance that way. So I'm going to give you something. I'm going to give you a tool that'll help you plan. I'm going to help you stop wasting precious time, so you could free up more time in your week. And then we're going to try to create a little bit more harmony at home. Okay, so a little bit of context. So does this sound like you? You dream of being able to wake up each morning excited about your life, but instead you're struggling to keep things together. And maybe not all the time, but maybe there are some times where this is more relevant. You want to feel like balance is within reach. You wonder if you're ever going to feel, get over the burnout feeling. Are you struggling to break free from the demands that others place on your time so you can move forward in your life? And do you have a vision of feeling peaceful, but you keep getting stuck on how to make it happen? I want you to know the first truth about this situation, about work-life balance, is that it's not your fault and you're not alone. Statistics show that 1 in 5 Canadians report a daily level of unmanageable stress in their lives. And that is a statistic that's been tracked from 2003 to 2020. It would be interesting to see where we are as the numbers come in for 2021. But in general, we know, 20% of Canadians are dealing with difficulties when it comes to work life balance. So, how did we end up in this situation collectively? Okay, so one of the problems is that our modern day approach to balance, to work life balance, is way outdated. And I don't know if you've thought about this, but it hasn't really changed in a long time. So back in the Industrial Revolution, around the 1870s, is when we first start seeing the labor union move, right? It come into the play. I don't know why I'm like so excited. Come into play. So at this time, what was happening is people were working a minimum 10 hours a day, sometimes 16, 18 hours a day. And back then it was a lot of physical labor. There was a lot of factory work. So this is the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, right? And back in those times, there was a push to take care of the well-being of the employees. Yes, people could work 10 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. Yes, they could be productive for a short period of time. But in the long haul, people's lives were falling apart, their health was deteriorating. So, what we had was a labor movement. And this is where we come up with the 8 hour workday. So, we have 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest. And then what this campaign says, which I love, 8 hours for what we will. So, for leisure and hobbies and recreation. So this was the first attempt that we see at trying to create some kind of balance. But the truth is, our lives have changed dramatically. And I remember in the 80s, in the Toronto Star, there was an opinion column, and the writer was suggesting that with the advent of computers and technology, we would be so efficient that we would be working 20-hour work weeks or maybe 4 days a week. And I was so excited because I wasn't working yet. And I thought, that sounds awesome. But what happened is we just started cramming more into our day. And many of us work longer than 8 hours. And not only that, we're working during the day and we're working at home. Another problem is that, and see if this is a yes or no for you, thinking that balance is a state that we achieve and then we versus a state that is fluid. So we can get into issues where we feel like, oh, I just need to, like, I'll be happy when I'm not overloaded at work. I'll be happy when I have enough energy to go skating because I really love that. I'll be happy when I feel more balanced. So the truth is, just like riding a bicycle, if you are not having forward momentum, you are losing balance. And we are constantly moving forward in our life, but we're not making those micro adjustments to make sure that everything's operating as it should, that no bolts are coming loose, that we're not falling apart at the seams. So that's just one thing I want you to consider, is that when I give you my framework at the end of the session today, that you're going to be able to, the workbook that you're going to be able to take and use for your own clarity, it's not going to be something you do once. It's going to be something that you return to time and time again so that you can tweak and adjust your course forward. Something else that I want you to consider before I get into some of the strategies is that every generation faces a different challenge. So depending on your age, what you want out of life and how you work and how you view work may be very different. So I'm very mindful of that as we're gathered here today. So baby boomers, for example, work-life balance was not necessarily a priority. I checked this out with my parents, who I noticed were pretty big on overworking. In that generation, the baby boomer generation, it's about doing good work, securing great career, keeping that career strong, doing what you can to climb the ladder. However, in this age bracket, we find that 80% of people who are baby boomers do report a high level of stress. It's not sustainable to just put your nose to the grind and go for your entire career without balancing other aspects of life. Gen X, that's the generation that I'm in. So between 1961 and 1980, Gen X's are born. There's an emphasis here. Is the first time we start to see a real emphasis on family. We see telecommuting and extended mat leave come into the picture. And it's been a great move in the right direction. But now we have millennials who, by the way, are 50% of the workforce, which is quite exciting. The more people in a generation we have in the workforce, the more potential for that generation to shape the outcome, shape the behavior. 80% of millennials consider work-life balance when they're choosing a job. They understand that there's more to life than just working, and they have a lot of values and criteria that need to be met. So we each have a different set of circumstances when it comes to how we can achieve balance. And it's really helpful when we're working in a group situation to realize that many of us have different needs. Some of us have young children, some of us have older parents, some of us are getting ready for retirement. So I thought that was really great to call this out and take a look at it. Okay, just going to pause here and shift gears for a moment. I'm going to launch another survey, and I'm curious. I'd like you to choose which country you think ranks highest in terms of work-life balance. Okay. So Finland, Mexico, Italy, Canada, Netherlands. Okay, great. Finland, I see a lot. So the majority is voting for Finland, and then second is Netherlands. One person has voted for Canada. Finland has a lot of really amazing things going for them, and it could be that they could rank high depending on how we're looking at it, but it's actually the Netherlands. The Netherlands is, in terms of how much time people spend at work, opposed to how much time they spend not working, recreation, that kind of thing. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperative Development, the Netherlands comes in at number 1. And I have some stats. So only 0.4% of employees in the Netherlands work long hours, so more than their full-time hours. And people tend to spend about 15 hours a day on their leisure. Canada ranks number 21. So we have about 4% of our employees working longer hours than the rest of the population, but there's still a dynamic going on right within the workplace that we feel a lot of pressure. So I just think it's really interesting. I wonder what we can learn from the Netherlands, what we can learn from Finland and countries like those who rank high on this scale. So another point, just to let you know, you're not in this alone. This is a definite cultural phenomenon happening here at home. Work-life balance is important because it does lead to burnout. So as a holistic nutritionist, there's like a ton of, recommendations I can make physiologically what you could do, but heart disease, weight gain, substance reliance, alcohol, that kind of thing, and a decreased quality of life. So you already know why it's important to check it out. Well, why should you listen to me? What can I tell you about this? I've been exactly where you are if you're suffering from a lack of work-life balance, and I know exactly how you guys feel. And I wanted to create a better way for myself to move forward, but I really struggled for years because I was trying to emulate what other people were doing. Here's the stuff I tried. I binged YouTube tutorials. I read books. I made lists. I quit jobs, right? That weren't, only to find out at the new job, some of the same issues were following me. I asked advice of friends. Maybe you guys have done this. I've noticed that other people's advice is usually never quite right for what you need, because your answers lie within you. Yelling and getting mad, trying meditation and yoga. Those things are wonderful and they do help for a moment, but they're not quite actionable. They don't really help you, um, create a plan. They can calm your nervous system. So I tried a lot of things, and given the work that I'm in, this is one of the areas that I got really interested in. Um, so I was super burnt out, and I'm not kidding. There was a time in my life where my blood pressure was really low. It was difficult to maintain, it was just really a difficult time, really stressed out, heart palpitations. I looked tired. I felt frazzled. I couldn't focus. But now, since I've been working with some frameworks that have been helping, it's been a lot better. Right. I have more time to spend with my family, cooking at our cottage, and things are a lot easier. So I want to share with you guys right now what the 3 strategies are that really help. And this is going to help you, I think, immensely. Okay. So are we ready? Secret number 1, okay, is how to assess your life balance without getting overwhelmed so that you can finally create goals that are tailored to you that will make a difference in your life, not what other people think you should do. So we do a lot of shoulding. I should be this way. I shouldn't be as tired. I should be more productive, etc. So the mistake that I see a lot of people make, and that I definitely made too for a lot of years, is feeling so overwhelmed about the entire state of our life that you don't even know where to begin. Your whole life feels like a disaster. So at the beginning of the session today, I asked you to assess on a scale of 1 to 10 how you felt you were managing, right? I was really happy to see some people were in at, 7s and 8s. That's pretty good. I think 7, 8, 9, 10, you're in a really robust zone. If you scored 6 and below, this is an indication that at this moment in time you're suffering potentially from overwhelm. Okay, and so what happens is a lot of people have a difficult time. They make their entire life seem like it's a disaster when really there's maybe just 1 or 2 areas that need help. So the realization that I had was, oh wait, my whole life is not a disaster. So the lesson I want you to think of is number 1 is I want you to see your situation as it is, not worse than it is. So often times we'll catastrophize, we'll get emotionally excited, if something's not working or it's feeling a little bit uncomfortable. And um, this is actually a quote that I used to love watching Oprah back in the day when she had her show, and she had Tony Robbins on. I'm not, like, don't follow Tony Robbins. I've seen some of his stuff, but I don't really follow him. But he was being interviewed by Oprah, and one of the things that he said that stuck with me is you have to see the situation as it is and not worse than it is. Being able to zero in and get clarity will help you immensely. But when you want to pull every area into your life and say it's all not working, it can actually take away from your enjoyment of those areas that are working. So this is the first lesson that I think is really important to share with you guys today. So the takeaway here is you want to spend some time assessing where you're thriving and where your life could use a little extra attention, love, and support. So I'm going to give you a worksheet that I'm really excited about. I had a lot of fun creating it for you guys. I'm going to give it to you at the end. There's going to be a link where you can download it and you can look at your life section by section. There are 8 different categories of life. And when I did this assessment for myself for the first time, I realized, oh my gosh, look, I'm doing really well when it comes to my relationships, but I'm doing really poorly when it comes to physical well-being. I wasn't moving a lot. I wasn't doing a lot of exercise, at that time. And I'm going to show you in that framework how you can build a customized plan that's doable, manageable, and it's not going to take, you don't need a degree. You don't need to go take courses or put in a lot of effort. So this is my trainer. Her name's Martha, and I showed her this plan because I noticed that she was really frazzled and she was having a difficult time being consistent, showing up in her business. And I could tell that there was a couple of areas, like once you do this work for a while, you can tell that people have really beautiful skills and gifts that they bring to the table, but often those get overshadowed because they're dealing with a difficult situation. And this was the case for her. So she was super stressed out, feeling a little bit out of control, acting out of control. And then after she used the framework that I'm going to share with you guys and give to you at the end, she has a better handle on things. She's been able to put a plan in place that works for her. And everybody who's having services from her are noticing the difference. And I think we all, it's really funny because I heard a speaker say years ago, how do you know when you're stressed, right? And it's like, for me, I got pretty short and curt and irritable. Like, please don't talk to me, I'm working right now, like that kind of stuff, which isn't great. But then the question is, how do others know when you're stressed? Right? So others feel it. And so if these are your working years, you don't want to come off that way. You want to have your stuff handled, right? It's just going to benefit you in your career. Okay, secret number 2. So this is the meat of the course, right? These pieces here. How you can reclaim hours each week without turning your entire life upside down so that you have the time and ability to feel more in control. A lot of us these days, me included, have suffered from distractions, right? So the second mistake that we make is giving distractions too much time and focus. And I'm sure where you have a sense of where that might be for you. So not being clear around what's draining your energy and taking time away from taking time away from what's important and meaningful and essential. So you can use your body. Your body is an amazing barometer everywhere you go. You can check in. You can either just like put your hands on the center of your chest or close your eyes for a minute or just stand still and tune into your body. You can do it right now. I love to put my hands on my chest because it just sort of grounds my experience inward. And just find out, like, how full does my cup feel at this moment? How does my body feel? And I was noticing when I was on social media a lot, my cup was drained. Like my life was working, but I had been giving too much of my mental space and attention to something that wasn't really improving my quality of life. Okay, so our final survey. What's the top time waster of modern time? What do you guys think? I feel like this one's a really easy one. Okay, you got it. Social media. Other thing, but saying yes too much, not prioritizing our time, those things can have an impact, and they do. But the biggest drain that we're facing right now is such a paradigm shift with everything moving to the smartphone, right? Everything at our fingertips. And so the realization that I had, and it was pretty recently, like I always knew that social media was eating away at my well-being. I was doing the right things. I was exercising, I was eating well, great friendships, all that kind of stuff. But I always felt drained and unable to feel resilient. So giving too much time to things. So I was using my body. And what was really hugely helpful was when Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp went down for that day. It was at the end of September or early October. And I think, yeah, it was right around that time. And I couldn't believe how many times I went to reach for my phone. It was crazy. And it was really uncomfortable, actually, to be honest. And I realized how much better I felt in my body. And by limiting the distractions, by limiting the non-work tech use, you will actually be able to lower your stress levels. So there've been studies done that show tech use is not the problem. Working on a computer with everything that you need to do your job, it's unlikely that that is going to be a cause of a stressor. Why? And just think about this for yourself. Why? It's because you're using the technology to do your job, and we feel typically pretty good about doing a good job. So it's when we're doing mindless scrolling, and I will not, I know some of you guys might be on TikTok. I couldn't even get on Snapchat. I was like, that looks too fun, I can't have it. Same with TikTok. I know it'll be such a huge distraction. But for you, how do you feel after you put your apps down, put your phone down? Right. So lesson 2 is to just become more mindful. I'm going to give you a tool as well at the end that will help you with your time planning, that you can like take and customize for yourself. So being more mindful about how you spend your time, notice if what you're doing gives you an energy gain or an energy drain. Everything's either filling your cup or it's taking it away. So takeaway 2, before the day starts, before it presses in on you, I'd like you to think about getting really clear about what it is you want to accomplish that day. And maybe think about the state of being. Think about how you want to feel. I want to feel calm. I want to feel balanced. Great. And then can you notice every time something comes into your awareness that gives you the opposite experience of that, that takes you further away? And you can start to notice your patterns over time. The thing is we are all very well resourced. We all have a great handle on what will work for us, what we need to do to help us. So my goal today is not to overload you, is just to give you some tools and zone in on areas that are really going to help. Okay, so one question that I get a lot from people is, how do you handle role overload? So sometimes at work, you just have um, a lot of work. There's a lot on your plate. Sometimes people know who the competent individuals are, and they ask you because they know you will say yes. So just having a little bit of a sense of our boundaries and our obligations. Are we really obligated to say yes to everything that comes our way? I want you to just think about that. My friend would not let me use their photo, and that's fine. So I just picked a photo that I thought represented fatherhood, or parenthood. So I have this friend who, every time you're around them, they would be on their phones. Literally, we would be playing card games and they would be having a side game on their phone, like whatever the game was that they were playing. And this person, their stress, and they're very snappy. Their ability to just like flow and be with people was really diminished. And it wasn't comfortable for us to be around them. And we weren't getting connection anyway when we were there. And it wasn't comfortable for them. You could see the signs of stress like all over. So like face scrunched up, shoulders up to the ears. Like these are classic stress physiological factors. So, but after I was able to like chat with this friend and help them a little bit out. That's one of the benefits, I guess, of being a friend of mine, is that I have a whole bunch of tools that I am excited to share with people, that they started to connect more, spend more time with their sons, and have a more meaningful family life. So I just think it's really important that we watch our tech use. We know that it's what happened. So what was her name? Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower. What for me around non-work tech use? Yes, I still use Instagram. Yes, I still go on apps. I'll read the news, like that kind of stuff. But I'm very clear that I want to be using the technology versus it using me. So when this Facebook whistleblower spoke before, was it Congress? I don't know, when she came forward, and she used this term that she said is used across Pinterest, Facebook, all social media platforms, is they create their programs, they create their product to be very sticky. And I went, yeah, that's how it feels. As a user, it feels really sticky. And the thing about the way your brain works is your mental real estate, it's really easy for things to get stuck to it. Just think of like ad slogans from, that you've heard throughout your life, jingles, like radio jingles. Like if I say sleep country, you could figure out the rest of the jingle. All of that is really sticky. Our brains are really sticky. So I was just, for me, I noticed for myself and others that I've helped, when we can kind of reclaim control over how much non-work related tech use we have, it's really helpful. Okay, and the last one, and this one, I don't know if I'm the most excited about this tip or not. And after this, I'm going to show you the tools that are going to feed into each of these. Okay, so secret number 3, how to easily enlist the help of your family members at home without the screaming tantrums and the protests, so that you can truly enjoy some of the downtime that you deserve at home. Okay, so mistake number 3 is setting a precedent at home. So this is specifically for the home, setting a precedent that you'll pick up the slack, you'll walk the dog, you'll put the laundry away, you'll do the dishes, you'll vacuum the floor, because it's easier. If you do it, you don't have to deal with the behavior. Um, I realized this quite late on. So I'm a stepmom of pretty grown kids. They're awesome. But I did notice that it was me doing all of the picking up, the cleaning, the chores, because it was just easier. And then I realized, and maybe you guys realize this too, and I remember being a kid, at some level, your kids know that they've got a good deal going on with this. They know. And so once I realized, oh my gosh, people are okay with me holding more of my fair share, that's got to stop. So I had to come up with a system that really helped. So you don't have to do more than your fair share. And I'm going to show you a tip in a moment that's going to make life a lot easier for you guys who are parents. But you just want to be really mindful of the precedent that you're setting. And if you do come up against like protest behaviors, just know they're going to be short-lived. If you can stick to your convictions of needing help, it will be short-lived. So my friend created a cue card method that's really helpful. This is the friend who uses it, and she's just been able to get her kids to do housework so much easier. Okay, so the highlights are: we need to be able to identify where we're out of balance, and then look at where you're actually thriving. So I'm going to show you that tool in a moment, how you can stop wasting time so that you can free up more time to do what you love, and how to get help at home. Okay, so these are the 3 things. So I'm going to show you guys a couple of things. I'm going to start with the first one. Okay, for my parents out there, every time I show this to parents, they're like, oh my gosh, it works so great. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to have a bunch of cue cards with different chores on them. Oh, do I put laundry away? Empty the garbage. Oh, I've got an empty one. How fun is that? Oh, because you can write your own. Take out the recycling, whatever, dog poop patrol, whatever the chores are at your house that need done, cleaning the bathroom. So what you do is you lay these all out, let's say on the kitchen table, and you say, okay, I just want to look at house chores. Let's have a family meeting. Okay, I want you to pick the jobs that you're responsible for right now. Right? It's kind of fun. We're not getting mad, we're not pointing fingers. And then you'll probably notice not a whole lot of cards get picked up. And you say, okay, well, I typically clean the bathroom. I typically do that. I typically clean everyone's, beds, empty the garbage. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, you really are doing all that stuff. I hope I'm making sense to you guys. Hope you're following. So what you can do is put these all out and say, okay, I want everybody to pick 2 jobs they're going to do this week. I don't care which ones they are, because you can see right now I'm doing a lot of them. So pick the ones that you want to do. It would be a huge help. And then somebody goes, well, I realized that loading the dishwasher is really simple and easy. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to, what's another? I'm going to vacuum, because that's really fast and easy. So what happens is your kids will get smarter every week. They will realize, hey, if I get there first, I can pick the good job and I don't get stuck with the bathroom. I hate doing the bathroom. So you can create the system. You can like tweak it. You can like have magnets on the fridge, someone's name, and then the chores they're going to do that week. But this is a great way to get them to pick what they're going to do, and you don't criticize the job they do. And it's unlikely you're going to get protest behavior, because honestly, people know when you're doing more than your fair share in the home. They absolutely know at some level, and they know that it really works for them. So this is a really fun way to create more balance at home, because it's really exhausting when you're working all day and then you're coming home and you're having, to prepare dinner or whatever it is, or maybe you're even working more when you're at home, and then you've got to clean. and your house maybe doesn't get clean and it's kind of a disaster, right? We don't want that. Okay, just real quick, I'm going to share with you this booklet I'm going to give you guys. So there's going to be a resource. So I created this to help you figure out where in your life you could use more balance. So you're going to get this basically kit. This is the wellness wheel. You're going to be able to assess 8 different areas of your life. There's one for working age people and one for people who are retired. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing in each area? You're going to get to color in, like have a bit of fun and see, oh, relationships are doing really great, but my physical well-being is suffering. Okay. So you're going to pick, you're going to get your chance to do your own. You're going to pick which area you're going to focus on. Where do you want to be in 3 months, 6 months? What's your action plan? What are the small things you can do to help yourself and to move forward? So that's how you're going to help collapse the whole catastrophizing of my whole life is a mess. You're going to go in real time. And I have like a file folder. I print one out. I do it in January. I do it about 3 or 4 times a year, or anytime I'm starting to feel like I'm about to I'm not great. And I compare them and I look at my progress over time. And so, for example, at the beginning of the pandemic, I realized, well, beginning of last year, I realized, oh my God, I haven't been exercising like pretty much at all. So I noticed my physical well-being was like a score of 3. Okay, well, what's one thing that I could do? I could join a virtual class. And I've been doing that now 4 times a week for a year. And it's made an impact in every area of my life. So you're going to get that. And then the last tool that I'm going to show you guys is a time tracker. So you're going to get this productivity tracker. The idea is you start each day with 3 things that are important. If you went to bed at the end of the day and these 3 things got done, you'd feel good. So you're going to go, okay, I'm going to do the report for Simon. That's the first thing. I think it's going to take me 3 hours. So you write it in here. Then you work in 30-minute blocks of time. So each 30-minute block of time, you color it in. Oh, it actually only took me 90 minutes to do. Amazing. And you go on with all your tasks. What I love about this tool is if you're struggling at work, if you are taking on more than your fair share, this is a way for you to track your time, take the emotion out of what you're doing, and bring your boss and say, hey, I just want to talk to you. Can we like brainstorm how to do this differently? I keep thinking it's going to take me X number of minutes to do this task that's a part of my job, but it's actually taking me twice as long. Here's how I've been doing it. Is there a better way that I could be doing it? So you actually have data that helps you focus your time and attention and show and to take the emotion out of when you're asking for help. How this works, it's kind of set up like the Pomodoro technique, where you work in 30-minute blocks of time, as I've mentioned, but you limit the distractions. So you put your phone on silent, you don't check your email, all the notifications that typically bing and pop off all of your tech, you minimize that and you work for 30 minutes at a time. So not only are you going to track how long it takes you to do something, and you're going to check to see if your process is actually working, but it's going to show you how distracted you can become, what those distractions are, and how often they happen. So you're going to get that. And then I'm going to share with you guys as well, you're going to get, and I believe there's a link where all of these can be downloaded that you'll be given at the end of our session today. But there's another sheet with my favorite apps to help you minimize your reliance on non-work related technology. So I just wanted to let you know you're definitely not alone. I hope that you like the tools that I've highlighted. And just to reiterate, we're looking at being able to identify where truly you need to make an impact in your life, where you need the help, what small goal you can plan for yourself, because it's small movements over time that lead to big results. How you can track your time a little bit better and minimize distractions, and also the cue card exercise to get your family members on board. So that's the formal portion of our presentation. And I believe Demetra is going to come back on and we'll answer some questions.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for sharing the insights and experience with us. I loved the cue cards. Hopefully we can get back to that later through the questions, but I love that. It was great. So we have quite a few questions that have come in from the audience. So I'll just jump right in. So our first question is, how can organizations or leadership promote and support work-life balance to staff that are burning out?
Oh, that's a really great question. In my experience, the leadership body has to feel it's a priority. They have to feel like it's something that they buy into. It's really a cultural phenomenon in my experience. And if the CEO or whoever's at the top operates in a very different way, and maybe they don't have an understanding around employee burnout, you can run into difficulties. Fortunately, in my, working with many companies that do hire me, um, it's little things. It's little things like the HR department can highlight what benefits are available to you. Here's our employee assistance program. You can speak to a mental health professional. You can speak to a financial professional. You can speak to a psychologist who's great at childcare tips, things like that. So there's a lot of resources that companies do have. So in those situations, I would say, can somebody in HR just do an inventory of all the things that they are doing to support the staff and let people know about those? And that might get the ball rolling and open up more of a conversation. Demetra, do you have anything to add to that? Any ideas?
I would say definitely for companies to take initiative, like take the lead on it. Don't wait for the problem to happen, and make it a consistent reminder. So even, I guess the frequency will really depend on the company, but maybe even just sending an email that's a check-in, reminding people in that email of the resources. And that way it's another email, but it's a way of you taking action and being proactive rather than reactive. And I agree that it has to be a priority. It really does. So management will really be setting the culture.
Yes.
As it always is. Yeah.
And we talked, how the Industrial Revolution is what set our concept of work-life balance. I really think we're on a precipice of seeing a cultural shift around how we work, especially remote working. So I think just stay committed and, see what you can do to bring in resources. Even somebody who, like myself or Demetra, who work in the area of well-being, can you bring us in for one thing? Can we support in one way? And then it'll kind of balloon from there. Okay, great question.
Yeah. So our next question, can you speak to specifically moms, dads, and caregivers who are trying to balance raising a family along with everything else?
Oh, that one's really tough. Okay, so Demetra, are you a mom?
I'm not a mom, but I do work with moms.
Oh, you do. So I'm going to give this one to you because I'm a stepmom of adult children.
Okay, well, one thing I would say is I would play off of your cue cards. And what I really loved about that was that you had a visual object that that was making it a physical reminder of the situation. So I love that for that reason. But then I also love the fact that you were bringing all the stakeholders together.
Right.
So what I would add to your cue cards would be to try to gamify the situation, because gamification, if we look around us, it's everywhere. This trend is everywhere. Companies are doing it. So bring in gamification into the situation. And so how would you do that? Think of your situation as your household, like a game, and you need to create the rules. So you're bringing in all your stakeholders, so the parents and the children, and together you're going to make the rules of the household. And that's going to be using those cue cards. But by doing that, what you're doing is you're not pointing fingers and telling them what to do. They are part of the solution.
I just had an idea. I'm like so excited.
So, and what I love about it is when you gamify it, they can help make the penalty. They can make, maybe it's a point system. You will decide on your own. And what I also love about that is it helps unify the family, because as the situation changes, which it has been in the last year, like crazy every week almost, you go back and you have a family meeting, you reassess the rules of the situation, and together you decide what the new rules are. And what,
Okay. I got to tell you, I love the idea of gamification. So one thing that popped into my mind was, okay, loading the dishwasher. So remember in the old days we would go to the library and you'd like, there'd
yes,
be a little pocket and the due date would get stamped on. So on the back, there could be a log and it could just be like, how much time did it take you on Monday to load the dishwasher? And I could say, Michelle, took me 3 minutes. And so you could try to better your score every week, or you could try to do the chore faster than your siblings, for example. And there's a ton of ways. I love the idea of gamification, and I'd be so excited to see what people come up with for
yeah,
themselves.
and creativity. So
Totally.
that's one way. And I'd love to hear people report back.
Totally. Great question.
So let's go to the next question. How is balance possible when working from home and being reminded about work constantly?
Okay, perfect. It's recommended to have a schedule. So don't just wake up, try not to wake up 5 minutes before bed, roll into your computer. And that's the first thing. So have a morning routine, whether it's going for a walk every day for 20 minutes. So the time you used to spend commuting, you do something, you get out of the house, you have some you time. Have a hard stop. Have a time at the end of the day that you would like. So it's 5 o'clock every day. I'd like to wrap up. And you could put a reminder on. You could schedule something for yourself to happen at 5 o'clock that literally pulls you away. A course, a virtual catch up with a friend, maybe even an in-person catch up with a friend. Really important to have something outside of yourself to pull you away at the end of the day. Second, have different technology if possible. Have your work computer and power it right down, and have your personal computer and do not have it talk to your work email. Keep your tech really separate. If it's possible, close, like I've got an office, I close that door happily at the end of every day. Out of sight, out of mind is really, really helpful. And if you're finding that you're working because there's nothing else to do, go back to the wellness wheel. Check out, how are your hobbies and recreations doing? How are your personal contacts and relationships doing? Could you interact with other people in more meaningful ways to pull you out of that pattern to try to get into work? Yeah, really great question. But really out of sight, out of mind, and having things scheduled to get you off. I want to say this too. The more we sit in front of computers, it's very hypnotic, just like watching the news, like, oh, what's happening today? Watching the TikToks, like it's very hypnotic. So what you want to do is, if you're having a difficult time, the other thing you might want to check in is, how much movement have I done? The more you don't move, the more you don't move. And so if you're feeling like, ooh, I could really use a stretch, but you never get up and stretch, do that. You know, you never really go for a walk. Make sure to walk every day after work. That break will interrupt that hypnotic pattern that's kind of got you pulled in, and it will refresh you. Being in nature will literally cleanse your cleanse your whole mind and get you reset so that you can come back and you get to choose how you're going to spend your evening.
Great. And the next question is, how does this apply to retired and older people? What advice can you give to help retirees find meaning?
Yes, I think the wellness wheel activity is going to be great for people who are retired. For that reason, I have created one specifically for folks who are retired, and it's just a life balance workbook. And instead of assessing your career, you're assessing your intellect. It's called intellectual. So it's like, what kind of learning are you doing? Are you expanding your mind? But otherwise, where are your hobbies at? Do you have the social connections? What happens with many people is they can go two ways. They can overschedule themselves in retirement, or they can way underschedule themselves and become more and more isolated. So I just ask you to keep an eye on your entire life and make sure there's no area that's getting left out. And for you to be in the driver's seat, don't wait for somebody else to check in on you. Don't wait for an invitation to come from somebody else. You really want to think about what would make what would make me really happy? What would I like to be involved in? And then just try to get yourself involved in those types of activities.
Perfect. And we have another question about when you've already been picking up the slack at work or at home, how can you reset the precedent? Good question.
Ooh. Yes. Okay, so I will tell you guys, I am the child of a behavior analyst, which is kind of like being the child of a psychologist, which is really hard sometimes because they are constantly looking at behavior and what elicits behavior. So when you're trying to reset the precedent, there's something called an extinction burst, a behavioral extinction burst. And what will happen is you've got status quo. So we've given the example of like, I noticed that my family was really happy letting me do more than my fair share of the work. We have a cottage. Okay. We're at the cottage and everybody's chilling and they're relaxing and I'm cooking and I'm doing the dishes and I'm like vacuuming and they're not doing anything. So we do the cue card method, right? But you have to be prepared for a little bit of an upset, especially certain age kids, right? When you think about what'll happen is a person will give you a behavior. They will do the easiest thing possible to get the outcome that they want. So if the outcome that they want is not doing a whole lot of shared responsibility at home, and you ask them to make a change, they might freak out. Their behavior might escalate. And usually the parent goes, okay, that's fine. I'll just do it. It's easier. I can't handle your stress. The next time you ask the child to do something, they don't start here and escalate. They start where they got the behavior, the outcome you gave them last time. They start here and then they freak out to this level. And you go, oh, fine, I can't. So you have to be able to ride out their emotional display, because eventually they'll go, I'm putting out so much effort, but it's not working. Boom. That's when you have a behavioral extinction burst and the behavior stops and then you can kind of work together. I hope that made sense. In a professional setting, it's really using that time tracker that's non-emotional. It's using facts and data, and it's coming with a collaborative mindset. How can we do this differently? Here's how I've been doing it. This is what I think it's going to take, the resources it's going to take to do it. Turns out we might have to rethink how we do this part of work. So it's really taking the emotion out and being willing to be part of the solution by proving with data, with numbers, not emotion.
Thanks, Michelle. So we are out of time for questions, and I just want to thank everyone for submitting their questions. And so to our audience, on behalf of U of T Mississauga, I'd like to thank you, Michelle, for your presentation and responses to the questions from our alumni audience.
Oh, I'm just looking through some of the questions here. It was really fun today. I hope everybody got something out of it, and please do, download the resources and use them. And Demetra, thank you so much for being such a wonderful moderator.
Thanks, Michelle. So to our audience, we apologize if we weren't able to get to your question today. We received a lot of questions. If you sent something in and we weren't able to answer it. When this webinar ends, you will have the option to take a post-event survey, and we do hope you will take a couple of minutes to complete it, as your feedback is helpful for planning future events. Everyone who registered for today's event will also receive a link to the full wellness webinar series once it is concluded in early March. If you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to watch next week's session entitled The Power of Positivity, presented by Assistant Professor Jennifer Steller. For other upcoming event listings and more, please visit the UTM Alumni webpage. You should see a link pop up in the chat right about now. There we go. So thanks again for joining us. We look forward to hosting you again at another U of T alumni event. Bye, everyone.